And opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the hosts and guests. All individuals mentioned are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law.
Hello, hello. Welcome to Moms for Justice. I'm Carolyn and this is Jocelyn.
Hello, good evening.
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good.
It's been a
Very
while.
good, thank you.
We took
I know.
off on Friday. Wait, what's today? Today is
Tuesday.
Tuesday. So we were off on Friday because we've had a lot of stuff going on. And we're sorry, and we're back with Jodi Arias. So we did one part on her, and we're going to walk through it. And this is like part two. I know everybody knows this case already. And it definitely lights a lot of fire under people because, you know, people hate her. And like I said in the first episode, Travis Alexander wasn't exactly the greatest person himself either. Because he had a tendency to use her and use his Mormon religion to hide her like she's some big dirty little secret. And
Yes.
I thought it was interesting to explore the fact that a lot of people, though he doesn't deserve to die because of it. You know, he should not have been killed. I agree. And she's a pretty awful person herself. But Travis Alexander was not wonderful either.
I mean, I think he kind of drove her to that insanity too. He had to play in that mental, status.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, here's a little quick shot of them. But today, I also wanted to talk a little bit about Juan Martinez because he is the prosecutor on the case. And he is a really interesting person. Okay.
Why?
Well, I'm going to tell you why. Because, okay, so he's a former prosecutor for Maricopa County, Arizona. He's known for aggressive litigation style. He's actually my favorite prosecutor ever. Like, I love this guy. He's fabulous.
He's like the movies. Is that what you're saying?
Even more so. I mean, like, there's times you'll see in the trial where he's like screaming and yelling and degrading people, and that's the part of him that I think you personally will be like, I don't like him. Why do you got to be such a jerk? Because I think that'd be something. Yeah, I think you're going to be like that. I don't know. You're going to be like, really? Like, but I love him, and I just think that he had to do what he had to do, right, to get this case out there, let the facts be known. With that, though, he's no longer a prosecutor. He was involved. No.
I mean, he has to be pretty old.
Yeah. Well, you can pretty much retire, I think, a lot later than you think. I think attorneys can go into their 70s. I mean, look at F. Lee Bailey, Robert Shapiro from O.J. Simpson. I mean, they were up there,
Right.
60s, 70s.
That's true.
F. Lee Bailey was an amazing defense attorney, and he went on to like defend OJ, I think in his late 70s. I think he was in his late 70s.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. I don't think I realized that.
But the interesting part about Juan Martinez is that he's no longer a prosecutor, not because he chose to retire, because he got himself in a bit of dirty trouble after this case was over, long after.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So anyway, Maricopa County, Arizona, known for his aggression. Yeah.
Wait a minute. You're not going to tell us? Are you going to tell us later about the dirty shenanigans? Okay.
I'm telling you now. No, I am. I'm telling you right now. I'm going through just a little bit about Juan Martinez, and then I'm going to play his opening statement because it's amazing, and he's just amazing. So anyway, he's known for his aggressive litigation style. And we all know that he's prosecuting. This is probably the biggest case he ever had. He became really famous in 2013 for this case. He gained national fame for having that fiery courtroom presence. He was admired by many, but also criticized by others for like grandstanding and, yelling and screaming and things like that. But he ended up having misconduct allegations. He was accused of multiple ethical violations, which included leaking trial information to two bloggers that he was involved with and sexually harassing female colleagues in his office. Okay. Oh. Yeah, he's a dirty boy, right? He is definitely dirty. So anyway, he faced a lot of, he was reprimanded for prosecutorial misconduct. Yeah, that's what it's called. In also multiple death penalty cases. So they were calling him out for that first. And then all of a sudden they found that he was, having, patting girls, like a little too low on their back and getting real, harassment in the office.
That's very old school though, too. And they think it's okay,
It is old school. I mean, I had a job when I was 21, I think it was. I worked for a major healthcare company, and I had this boss that was always touching me, always, and I just thought it was normal. Hand around, coming up behind me at the copy machine, hand around my waist, kind of at the curve of your waist, and just kind of holding your waist and going, "How are you today?" And I thought it was normal. I didn't know.
You're like, "I'm good."
I'm like, well, did that ever happen to you? I mean, please, everybody, come on. I don't.
Yeah.
I didn't know any better. I didn't know any better.
One time I had a boss who would come up to me and massage my shoulders and be like, how you doing today? Your shoulders are hard, after working so hard, I'm like, and me too. I'm like, whatever. I'm okay. I don't care.
That does not fly today at all. So no, would not fly in today's day and age. Hold on a second. Where are my comments at? Do you see comments?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. I don't know what happened to them. All right. So, So yes. And the whole massage thing that he was doing that. Juan Martinez was doing that with yeah.
The old school thing. Yeah. They think it's innocent. I think they actually think it's innocent. Your guy was bad. Touching on the waist, that was bad.
Oh, well, here's the other thing. He had a secretary that I heard he was having an affair with. And then I found out from other people, they would come up to me, men and women that I worked with, telling me, he likes you. How brazen, right? How brazen of the person,
Well, I mean, I think they were trying to warn you, maybe. I think they were trying to. No,
they were like, do you like him back? Do you want me to go back and tell him? And I'm like, no, I did not like him back.
They were pimping for him.
They were pimping for him. And I can't even tell you how many times he would call me into his office. He wanted to talk to me and just be like, how are things going? He'd be like, how's things going on the floor? And I'm like, everything is great. And he wasn't even I didn't even report to this guy. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah. Where is he now?
I wonder where he is now. He's probably in jail. He probably finally got busted for touching ladies in the workplace. It just was so not a big deal back then. And people were just like, okay, I don't know.
We're going to have to look him up later.
Yeah.
Just for shits and giggles. Yeah. Okay.
So Jodi Arias' prosecution attorney, we're talking about him, Juan Martinez. Mm-hmm. He sexually harassed women in the workplace. And it's such a shame because he is such an incredible attorney and he made his mark with this case. And everybody always says, can you imagine? When I watch other true crime shows or I'll watch other trials, even in the comments of YouTube on other trials, people will go, imagine if Juan Martinez questioned this person. You know what I'm saying? Right. He just relentless. And it's just too bad his career got destroyed. So here's a little blurb kind of explaining what happened with him. So he faced renewed scrutiny after an Arizona Supreme Court committee ordered the state bar to reopen an ethics investigation against him. Initially, the state bar dismissed allegations that Martinez had engaged in inappropriate relationships with two bloggers covering the Jodi Arias trial. and had improper contact with a dismissed juror. So an actual juror on the case he contacted afterwards and then had some sort of sexual liaison with them. Ethics attorney Karen Clark argued that the bar mishandled the case, ignoring key evidence and witness. And then new information revealed that Martinez may have sought strategic trial insights from the dismissed juror in order for him to do his job, right? And claimed to have had exchanged sexually charged messages with him. Additional allegations then surfaced, including claims that Martinez sexually harassed multiple females in the workplace and engaged in misconduct during a 2005 incident where he allegedly forced a woman to smell a murder victim's clothing. Now, what could that be? I don't know.
Why? I think that's crazy that he's being charged for making somebody smell somebody's clothes.
Well, I think at that point it was like just another thing that made him look bad because they had all these other things first, right? And then
honestly, I would have to find out. Like, I can understand why they want to deep dive into this said juror, this dismissed juror. Like, I would like to know, like, how long was she on the jury seat before she got dismissed? I mean, all that stuff factors, because in all reality, she's not part of the case anymore, and the case was over supposedly, right?
It was, yeah.
When they got together. So, like, why can't you date somebody? Or be with somebody? I don't know. I guess I can understand why they want to revisit it, but I mean,
because the women in connection to this complained about him, not because it was consensual. They brought a complaint. They all brought complaints against him. So this really tarnished. What's that?
I'm talking about the juror. I'm talking about the ex-juror.
Yeah, I think the juror came.
She complained?
Yeah, she complained and said that he had sexually charged text messages with her. So I don't think it was consensual. I think that I think what happened was the juror got dismissed for whatever reason, because jurors get dismissed all the time for whatever. Could be a health problem in their family. Jurors get dismissed because they did something wrong, and it's now going to affect the case if they stay on. So then that person gets off, right? So I imagine that he probably reached out to the juror, to get some inside information, and maybe the juror was cooperating, and then it was a woman and she was maybe attractive, and then eventually he couldn't help himself because I think he's a perv, and he started sending sexual messages to her.
Yeah. Right.
And then she complained. So anyway, this really, really tarnished his reputation. That was a stellar, impeccable reputation, and it just completely came crashing down on him. And, they basically said that he violated ethical standards and potentially compromised Jodi's constitutional rights. But Martinez's attorney dismissed the accusations as an attempt to undermine a high-profile prosecutor. But because the evidence was growing and it became so big, they disbarred him. And he stepped down willingly and agreed to being disbarred. I know that he said, okay, I should be disbarred, and that's that. So that's the story. Wow. A little background on this incredible attorney. And what we'll watch is him in his heyday. But
right. Do you know what year what year was it that he got disbarred?
Yeah, 2020, he was disbarred.
So just recently.
But I remember seeing this in the news after after 2015 or so, because he came out with a book, a book on how he prosecuted Jodi Arias, because the case was like the biggest of his life, Right, and he came out with a book, and it sold. He made a ton of money, and even other attorneys and lawyers looked up to him so much they bought the book to get tips, on how, on his methods and his strategy. Right. So make no mistake, he is so good. And I'm like, it's hard for me to be like, ew, you perv, I don't like you anymore, because I like him as an attorney. I think he's great. So we're going to watch his opening statement for Jodi Arias. Okay, so let me just pull this up here. Boom. No thanks to that. Okay, let's roll.
All right,
Mr. That's not it. That's look who it is.
Not my favorite guy.
I love that guy. I love that guy.
Of
All right.
I don't
Alexander
like him.
in violation of Arizona
Here we go.
A true bill Andrew P. Thomas, Maricopa County Attorney, dated July 9, 2008, signed foreperson of the grand jury, to which the defendant enters a plea of not guilty.
Mr. Martinez.
Good morning again. This is not a case of whodunit. The person who done it, the person who committed this killing, sits in court today. It's the defendant, Jodi Arias. And the person that she done it to is an individual by the name of Travis Victor Alexander, a former boyfriend of hers, an individual that she was in love with, an individual that was a good man, an individual that was one of the greatest blessings in her life. And this love, well, she rewarded that love for Travis Victor Alexander by sticking a knife in his chest. And you know, he was a good man, according to her. And with regard to being a good man, well, she slit his throat as a reward for being a good man. And in terms of these blessings, well, she knocked the blessings out of him by putting a bullet in his head during one event that occurred on June 4th of 2008. Travis Alexander had the misfortune of meeting up with the defendant in Las Vegas, Nevada at the MGM Grand back in September of 2006. They were both involved with a group called PPL, or Prepaid Legal. And basically what this organization did is they went out and they sold units, if you will. And basically it was a situation where people would buy these units and they would be covered for legal purposes should the need arise. And they met, as I said, in September of 2006. And after the meeting, it is true that Mr. Alexander began to have contact with the defendant. And he began sort of to pursue her. But it is also true, or an indication anyway, that initially he was mostly interested in converting her to the Mormon faith. You see, he was a Mormon. He had also been a Mormon for some time. And one of the few first things that he did when he began to talk to her initially is that he gave her the Book of Mormon. And a lot of the time that they had was spent on reading this Book of Mormon, talking about it, and so that their religious relationship progressed to a point, and it was a very rapid religious relationship, that it progressed to the point that in November, approximately 2 months later, in November of 2006, the defendant chose to become a Mormon. And the process that you undergo to do that is you become baptized. And so she was baptized in November of 2006. And the person that she chose to baptize her was none other than Travis Alexander, the person that she had met up with, the person who had introduced her to this faith, and the person that she was beginning to get closer with. And so their relationship progressed after that point, and it became a much more personal relationship. Now they were both Mormons, and there are certain guidelines for Mormons that you'll hear about. Specifically, one of them is that there's not to be any sexual contact before marriage. That's considered a very large sin. And I guess in the grand scheme of things, that's one of the sins that you need to avoid. But their relationship began to progress, and it was a very personal relationship. At that time, as their relationship progressed, the defendant was not living in the Arizona area. In fact, she lived in the Palm Springs area of California. And so it was sort of like a long-distance relationship. They would call each other, they would send text messages, they would email each other. And so their relationship blossomed that way, and occasionally they would see each other. He would drive out there, or they would somehow meet. Well, by February of 2007, they became sort of an item. They agreed to just continue dating each other, just to see each other and not anybody else. And as part of that, one of the things that happened is that they both did what is not expected, but what usually can be expected to happen between two young people. They began to engage in sexual relations.
Uh-oh.
And obviously that is against the Mormon faith. And it provided conflict for both of them, that here they were sinning, if you will, all the time, whenever they would get together, and yet professing to be good Mormons on the other hand. But that's sort of how their relationship was at that point. Well, they continued this relationship for about 5 months, from February 2007 to about June of 2007. And in June, to be exact, using her telling, June 29th of 2007, the defendant couldn't help herself. She was a snoop, just couldn't help herself. And what she did is she went and got a hold of Mr. Alexander's phone, his cellular telephone. And she wanted to see what was in there. Couldn't stop herself from doing that, and so she goes and looks at his cell phone in June of 2007. And she's looking for things to see whether or not there's going to be any contact with any other women. She describes them as being flirtatious, and she wanted to know what was going on and wanted to see if there was anything in that cell phone that would confirm her suspicions about his flirtations. And she found things there that she didn't like. But it was her going into his cell phone snooping. She did it surreptitiously. She did it without his knowledge because she wanted to know. Just couldn't help herself.
How many girls do that, right? I mean,
girls.
I know. Was that? So many girls do that and go and look. So I don't fault her for that. But keep in mind, guys, we already talked about the fact that they are Mormon, that she converts to Mormonism like 2 months after. 2 months. Like, how sincere could that have possibly been that she would really want to truly convert to Mormonism in just 2 months? I mean, it's obvious that she just wanted to get him as, whatever, get him to marry. The only way he would marry her is if she was a Mormon. So it's so obvious that that would be why that she would do that. I mean, right? Don't you agree?
I mean, yeah, but the Mormon faith is not going to turn down somebody if they're interested.
True.
Nobody's going to question it. Only person who should really be questioning it is him.
Okay, hold on one second. Talk for a second because I lost my spot.
So I find it hard to believe that they didn't have relationships after her converting to being a Mormon. I think it's a lot earlier than that. Is that something that she agrees to on her date?
Okay, wait. Say that again. Say that again.
He's saying that their relationship started in February. I think it started like the day after she turned Mormon. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Well, I think they're big flirts too, Mormons. I'm having an issue here. Hold on. A major issue.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think they're major flirts, and I think because they can't have sex, they're major flirts, and they like try to get around it as much as they can.
Right. So maybe they were doing heavy petting,
yes,
before the actual have relations,
Right.
I just find it really, 2 months later she turns, she converts to Mormonism.
I know.
And then I think she's going to want a little feedback.
Exactly. But it's just, she is stupid if she thinks we're going to sit here and think for a second that she, really truly wanted to become a Mormon. I mean, that is like a life-changing situation, right?
Yeah, but I don't. Who cares? I don't care whether she wanted to be a Mormon or she just wanted to get in his pants or she just wanted to have. Maybe she saw a future with him, and in order to have a future with him, she knew that she had to convert to this religion. Plenty of people do that. And
I know, but
if that's what she wants to do because she wants to be with him, then she has to be very faithful because that's what he wants.
But it is so out there that's not just any religion. It's not like, okay, I'm going to become like a Catholic. I'm Lutheran and I'm going to become Catholic tomorrow. That just doesn't happen. You know what I mean? That just does not happen. I mean,
if you want to be with that guy, it's going to happen.
Yeah, but to an extreme religion. That is a very extreme religion.
Plenty of people go from Catholic to Judaism or vice versa.
Yeah, that to me is extreme too. That's not as like, okay, I'll become Baptist after being Pentecostal or whatever. I just feel like, that's a major change to become.
I don't believe she had a very strong religious base to begin with. So
no.
Right. So jumping into somebody else's faith because you see a future with that person is very legit and plausible.
Right.
And honestly happens all the time.
Yeah. Okay. I get that. Okay. I found my spot again.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, guys. It was weird. I don't know what happened, but okay. Let's get right to it. But of course, it goes right over to them again. So here. All right.
She doesn't want it. And at that point, they break up. That's June 29th of 2007. And remember, at that time, she's still living in Southern California in the Palm Spring area. And so after they broke up, you would expect that perhaps the emails would end, you would expect that perhaps the text messages would end, and maybe that the calls would attenuate. But just the opposite happens. Because instead of staying there in Southern California, or perhaps moving to where she was originally from, which is Wairika, California, which is on the Oregon-California border, instead of going there after this breakup in June of 2007, what does the defendant do? She moves to Mesa. She moves to Mesa. She can be closer to him. This individual that she does not trust, this individual whose phone she's gone and looked into, and this individual who she's just broken up, what does she do? Let's go to Mesa. Not only does she move to Mesa, but she moves to an area that's very close to his. And she is not in the same ward, but she does move to an area that's very close to where he is. And of course, the relationship continues. They continue to talk. They continue to text message each other. They continue the emails. And oh yes, they continue the sexual liaisons because she moved here. Well, this continues on for some time.
Hey, it's free booty call. What?
Well, I mean, like, it's like, so I just can't wait for her defense to come up. I mean, like, obviously, if he really wanted to cut all ties, he would just cut all ties. You know, so
not if you're going to get a free, not if you're going to get a free sex. I mean, he's getting free sex.
Okay, but don't act like, you know, that this is all her doing. You know what I mean? That's the annoying part. That he's totally acting like, oh, she moved close to him. She keeps on texting him. She keeps on calling. Well, he has to actually respond back for it to keep going on, you know?
Right.
It's not like, you know, it'd be different if he said he, you know, filed a restraining on her, but he kept on sending texts. And then he filed, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just.
You know, let me just say this out loud and make this statement that he finds no fault in Travis at all. So he's not going to. He is trying to nail her to the wall, understandably. Right. But I want everybody to know, at least from my perspective, and I believe that you will feel this way eventually too, but from my perspective of knowing the case, Travis Alexander is a total slime. He's a pig. He totally used her. He took advantage of her. He never saw her as wife material because, you know, he's got two lives going on. He's this great Mormon, this businessman making a lot of money, all these, like, you know, all these, they call it a Mormon ward. These girls, they're single young Mormon girls, and they go to what's called a ward. And then they have, like singles night, Wednesday night, game night. They'll have like a Friday night Mormon dance and all that. Keeping Jodi away from that was of like utmost importance to Travis because he wanted to portray himself as being a virgin and a good Mormon. So, but he had this insatiable need for Jodi sexually because he was cheating. He was cheating on his Mormon faith because
and he's a young man who wants sex. Yeah.
Right. Well, there are Mormons that will, you know, abstain from sex and, you know, just hold off until they're married because apparently also in the Mormon faith that you have to, like, in order to go to the temple, you have to be completely clean, they call it. You have to be without, you know, you have to be completely a virgin,
without
you know,
sin,
unless,
I guess, or
right. Now, that's not to say, and I know this because I have a Mormon friend, that if you do make a mistake, apparently you can repent and earn your way back into the temple. It's very hard. my impression is that religion makes it very difficult. Like with other religions, like for instance, like Jesus, like, you're forgiven for your sins and that's it. You don't need to keep like worrying about what you did in the past. While Mormon faith, what I feel about them is like you constantly have to do works. You have to constantly prove yourself every single day. So imagine being Travis, who's got this like secret where you're having sex with this girl and getting anything he wants from this girl. But then when he goes to these wards, I mean, at the end of the day, this man is not going to marry a woman like Jodi. He's not, because on the surface, he portrays himself differently. So he needs to have a pure, clean wife. So Jodi moving there is like, okay, that's like dangling candy in front of somebody. It's like she's right there and he's already had sex with her and he's just sneaking her in. Most of the time it's sneaking her in at night. So, but Juan Martinez will not say a bad word. Will not say a bad word about Travis. But he's slime because he did play her and use her for sure. Does the defense get up there and have a really good rebuttal to what he's saying? And was her defense really good? Well, that will be her defense, that she was abused emotionally with all of this, including other things. And then there's some bombs that I'm not going to tell you about since you don't know the case. There's some bombs that are going to come out in her defense, which are ridiculous, to be honest with you. But yes, she will have that. But the thing is that this prosecution team is so good and they're not good. They're not the greatest attorneys. They don't speak up when they need to. They say the word. They needed a Juan Martinez. Do you know what I mean? And they didn't have one. So, yeah. Okay. So we're going to play some more. Let's go.
Alexander, by this point, appears to be ready to move on. Or at least he appears to be ready to date other people. And in fact, he starts dating somebody by the name of Lisa Andrews. And there may have been others that he started to date. But at that point, there was no relationship between him and the defendant other than this constant contact and this sexual relationship between the two. This relationship that was facilitated, this sexual relationship that was facilitated by her move to the Mesa area. Well, this continues for some time until April of 2008. So in June of 2007, she moves here, and we fast forward to April of 2008, when finally the relationship seems to have run its course. It seems to have run its course because the defendant has finally decided to move to where her hometown is, a small town by the name of Yreka, California. And again, it's about 1,000 miles away from Mesa. And what she does before she leaves is she spends about a week with Mr. Alexander. And yes, according to her, they do have sexual intercourse. They continue that course of conduct. And she rents a U-Haul. And there's an agreement between the two of them involving Mr. Alexander's automobile, a BMW. And basically, he gives it to her, but not really giving, in the sense that she has to pay him. And she has to pay him an undetermined amount of money per month for this BMW that is his. He actually then buys a Prius, a black Prius.
Where'd you go, Lynn?
And so in early April of 2008, she loads up that U-Haul. Her mother may have come out here, but left before that. And then straps the BMW behind it. Doesn't get very far before there's a problem. The BMW starts leaking oil and all these kinds of things because she left it in first gear and cannot be towed. So now the BMW is destroyed and it goes to some sort of shop. But she leaves, but she's still basically going to pay for that BMW because she's the individual that was in control of it. But that's still sort of up in the air about that. Well, you would have thought that once she moved to Yreka, which is approximately 1,000 miles away, you would have thought that their relationship would have been over. No, it wasn't over. They continued to talk. They continued to send text messages, emails, instant messaging. messaging. And oh yes, there's the phone sex that she records of them when they are engaged in that particular conduct. And it's the phone sex that she keeps. Well, 2 short months after that April of 2008, when she moved to Wairika, in June 9th of 2008, the police get a 911 call. The Mesa Police Department receives a 911 call. And the person calling on the other line is an individual by the name of Marie Hall. And Marie Hall is an individual that Mr. Alexander has taken an interest in. She is somebody that is very much in the faith. She's somebody that is in his singles ward, so that they go and they sit around and they socialize and they talk about the Mormon doctrine. And so she's somebody that he feels much affinity to, and he starts to court her. And again, this is when the defendant is already in Wairika. He begins to look at her, and the relationship with Lisa Andrews is now over. And so he begins to take her out. There's a total of 3 dates that they go on. But for her, there's really no spark there. She's not interested in the slightest in him. Not only is she not interested in the slightest in him, she lets him know about it. It's not like she's going to sit there and just continue to go out with him and hang out and that sort of thing. No, they go out one time, they go back to a bookstore and they drink hot chocolate. There's no contact at all. There's not even sometimes what is considered the obligatory goodnight kiss. There's none of that. And she lets him know, I'm just not interested.
Obligatory.
And in fact, she starts to date somebody else. After she breaks up with that person, Mr. Alexander feels that perhaps there's a chance with him. And so they go out one more time and they go to a crafts kind of thing where they put a pot together, that's the kind of thing. Or they go rock climbing. That's the extent of their dating relationship. He's interested, she is not, but there's never any physical contact. Well, one of the things that Mr. Alexander has is a free trip to Cancun. This organization, this prepaid legal that he's involved in, has given him, along with other people with the PPL, a trip to Cancun. And he's allowed to take somebody with him. And so he approaches this Marie or Mimi Hall about going with him to Cancun. She says, no, I really don't want to go because I don't want you to believe that there's something going on between us. I really don't want to go there. But he tells her that that's not how it is. They're going to go as friends. In fact, they're even going to be in different bedrooms. So it's a situation where she's been to Cancun before. She wants to go. It was fun. So she doesn't see any harm in going.
Jody's going to be pissed.
The trip that they're supposed to go on is supposed to start on the 10th of June. And so she's the one that's on the phone on June 9th. And she hasn't spoken to Mr. Alexander for about a week, since June 2nd, which is a Monday. And it's strange to her because the trip is impending, and he usually would call her every day or send text messages or maybe email her. So it was strange that he hadn't called her, but she really didn't think anything of it. You know, since they were only going to go as friends, what's the big deal, right? And so when she doesn't hear from him up until the night before they're to go, which is the 9th, which is a Tuesday, well, a Monday, one of the things she does is she goes over on that Monday night. And when she goes over there, she goes and knocks on the door. And she knocks on the door very, very hard. Well, nobody answers. The only thing that she sees is the dog. The dog Napoleon, which is Mr. Alexander's dog, comes up to the door, just sort of throwing himself up on the door very excitedly. And she can tell that there's something wrong here. But nobody answers the door, and she doesn't know how to get in. And so what she does is she decides to call a girlfriend of hers to see if they can get in or somehow make contact with Mr. Alexander, because it's been about a week, and now it's already June 9th, and there's a problem here, and since they're going the next day. Well, she calls this friend of hers who says, okay, I'm going to be out there, and I'm going to meet you at the house. In the meantime, Ms. Hall then actually goes back to her house, to see whether or not there's any emails from Mr. Alexander, perhaps send him one to see if there's going to be any contact that way. She can't get in the house, perhaps electronically she can go in and have him respond. No response whatsoever, so she goes back to that house. And this is sometime after 9:30, 10 o'clock in the evening. She's not keeping track, really not sure, other than that it was in the evening. And so they go back, and her friend shows up with a boyfriend. So now there's 3 of them. There's Marie Hall, her girlfriend, and the guy that she's with. Bang on the door, they can't get in. They decide that perhaps they're going to call somebody else so that they can go to the pad on the garage. And then maybe if they can get the number to that, they can then go inside the house. And that pad does have a code, as most newer garage doors do. And in fact, the number to that garage pad is 0187. The reason that we know that is because the defendant also admits to having that code. And she admits that that's the number to the code, and if she wanted to go over there, she could just punch in that 0187 and go on inside. But Marie Hall didn't have it, her friend didn't have it, the guy that was with her didn't have it, but they were able to call somebody who was actually able to give them that number. 0187, they punch it in, and they go into the garage. Things are starting to not look so good because inside the garage is this black Prius. This black Prius, that's Mr. Alexander's. He's not answering the door, the dog is going crazy, and his Prius is in the garage. So they decide to walk in. And they walk in, and this is a 2-story house. They walk in, and to the right is the washing machine and the dryer. And then they take a left, and to the left is a bathroom, to the right is a study. And as they continue on to get to the stairs, to go upstairs, Marie Hall, or Mimi, notices that there's this strong, pungent, foul odor in the air. She figures, that Napoleon, he really must have been having real problems here. Because this doesn't smell very good
The dog.
And so they walk up the stairs. And when they walk up the stairs, they come to the first door on the landing, which on the left, which is Mr. Alexander's room. And I say room because Mr. Alexander wasn't living alone. He actually had a number of roommates, and the bedrooms were on the 2nd floor, and there were 2 other people that he was renting rooms to. There was himself up there, plus these 2 other people. So they get up there, and they go to the door, and it's locked. But the door is the kind of, or the lock on the door is the kind of lock that you can turn it from the inside, close the door, and it stays locked. It's not a situation that you need a key to lock it, but you do need a key to get back in and unlock it.
You can use a credit card.
So what they do, the 3 of them, they go talk to the roommate that's up there who's listening to music, knock on the door, and he...
Okay, isn't that weird? So they knocked and knocked and knocked, nobody answered, but the roommate is home. So the roommate never came. Oh, I can't hear you. Are you muted? Yeah, you must be muted.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so go ahead, say that again.
Yeah, it's funny. When you're in a situation like that where you're just renting a room, you just go into your room, and I could see him not fussing with anything else. There's nothing to do with him. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
But
Good
really,
point.
the whole pungent smell, though, how do you not question?
Right. That's the other thing I was going to say too, because he was smelling it all along. I mean, they must be that, they're all guys living there. Maybe just thought that, whatever. He blew up the bath.
Yeah,
so he came home and blew up the bathroom. But I mean, it would be consistent, right? It would be all the time.
Right.
Right.
That's
Okay.
what I would say.
Yeah. Okay.
has the key. So now there's 4 of them. There's Mimi Hall, her girlfriend, and these 2 other individuals, 2 men. They open the door, and when they open the door, Marie Hall stays behind, and the 2 men go inside. But she's able to see through the crack all this blood that's in the hallway. And the 2 individuals come out running excitedly and saying, "There's blood here." And that's Travis. He's in the shower. He's dead. And that's the reason that Marie Hall was on the telephone that evening of June 9th, 2008, calling the police to let them know that the person that she was going to go to Cancun with the next day, this friend of hers from the church, Travis Alexander, was dead. Well, of course, the police responded. And one of the things that they were able to note, and I do have a diagram so that maybe you can follow closer what I'm saying. I told you that, and this is exhibit number 249. I told you that Marie Hall and her friends went to this door, and this is the door. As you can see there, looking there, that's a big red spot. And there was lots of blood that you could also see here. And of course, the body is found on the lower right-hand corner in the shower. It wasn't standing, it wasn't anything, it was all just sort of hunched in. And one of the things that struck the investigators when they first went in there and they started looking at this is that the scene had been staged. It had been manipulated. Whoever had been the killer of this scene had manipulated that scene. And the police knew that that scene had been manipulated, first of all, by where the body was found. The body was found inside the shower, and the killing had obviously taken place somewhere else because there was blood all around the bottom here, the southern part. Right there on the sink, it is clear that the victim had stood over that and bled. And in fact, down here, it was also clear that he had bled there, and there were some drag marks down that hallway. So somebody had taken the time to manipulate, stage, change the appearance of the scene by placing the body there.
Okay, wait, I just want to say this because I already know, and I think you might remember from part 1, he started off in the shower, and she was taking pictures of him when he was in the shower. So I think what happened was the attack started at the shower, and then he ran down that hallway to where that big red spot was, and I think that she maybe hit him on the head again or tried to stab him there, and he bled out there. Then she dragged him back, and then the rest of it happened around the sink and stuff there. So, I mean, it was really a crazy, there was no corner where, like, except for maybe the bedroom, which is the orange part. And then also that's the closet right there. That's right next to the shower. That's a walk-in closet which has a door into the bathroom. But if you walk through the closet, there's a door into the bedroom as well. And then there's that long hallway.
I mean, honestly, like, I just feel like, I know when your adrenaline's pumping, you have a lot more strength, but that girl's really little to be pulling that guy around at dead weight. I think she could do it.
Yeah.
Especially when your adrenaline's running, but that's like, wow, how far did she pulled him from there to the whole triangle going on, it's just.
Yeah. And it's not just adrenaline too, that can change your strength and your ability level, but it's rage. Rage can really give you superhuman strength if you're that angry. Right. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes,
so
that's true.
And dragging is one thing. I mean, it's not like she had to pick him up and lift him. Then I'd be like, okay, there's no way she could lift him and bring him down a set of stairs. And I think that's why he ended up staying there, is because she couldn't do any more than she did, which was probably just the amount she could do at her size.
Well, dragging him from the doorway to the sink to the shower.
Yeah, it's crazy. It really is. Yeah, totally brutal. And by the way, Mark, I already know that he was disbarred, and I said it in the first 10 minutes. Just wanted you to know that. Anyway, all right, we will keep on playing. And hit the subscribe button, please, while you're at it. Here we go. Oh, please don't do this to me again. If it happens again, I'll be upset. Okay, wait. No, we're good. Okay.
The other thing that was notable about the staging of the scene was that whoever had done this killing had also taken the time to wash the body down. And it appeared that the person who had done this actually washed the body down with this big cup, had taken it and had poured it all over the body so that basically there was almost no blood on the body. It was just bloated from decomposition, but the area here, the cut that they were subsequently going to see, there was no real blood anywhere. So it was clear that somebody had cleaned him up such that whatever evidence was
there's the bedroom,
not going to be there anymore because the body had been washed. The other thing that they noted was that if this body is in such a bad condition, there was no knife there. It appeared there were cuts, and it appears there was a shot, and the gun wasn't there either. So somebody had also removed those from the scene, had taken the time, had thought this out enough to say, I'm going to take the gun and I'm going to take the knife away. Additionally, what this person had done was that they had taken, possibly, and it's consistent with the glass, had taken the glass and had just poured water down the hallway, down this area, because boxes that were on the ground level in this closet
Shoddy cleanup.
were actually soaked in water and blood. And additionally, what they were able to see was that down here, this big, large, massive blood with the 45 on there, well, that also had a lot of water in it. That was diluted blood. Somebody had taken the time to actually try to clean that. Not only that,
why bother?
Yeah, but with a cup, which
and
Yeah,
the
no, but
scale underneath
why
it
bother
had
is what I'm
drops of
saying.
blood that somebody had, somehow the blood had gotten there, the scale had been turned over. The mat, the same thing, there was blood underneath. So somebody had taken a considerable amount of time, however much time that would be, to stage that part of the scene. But they weren't through with that part of the staging of the scene. Because what they ended up doing is they took, and there was a matching set of towels there. What they did is they took one of the towels and began to wipe the area there. We don't know exactly what area was wiped down, but the towel is red and has this reddish substance to it. Not only did they wipe it down with that towel, but they took all of the bedding from this king-size bed, and they took that along with this towel and walked it downstairs to that washer as you walk in.
Yep.
And stuck it in there. And what was also notable for the police in terms of what was staged and what was manipulated was that here in this closet and in this bedroom where the bed was, that had not been manipulated. In other words, there was no blood there, but the covers had been taken, anything that was on there had been taken and placed into that washing machine. There were also
Did she
some
turn the washer on?
clothing that was in that washing machine.
I think
And
so.
also, interestingly enough, in that washing machine downstairs
Oh.
was a camera. And this camera, unfortunately, had been put through the wash. And as everybody that's familiar with the washing, that's not a very gentle sort of process. And the camera was destroyed. It was all messed up. It would never take any pictures again. So that's one of the things that confronted, or that the police were able to see. The other thing that they were able to find came from the body, things that they needed to know. And one of the things that they noted from that was that this was a very violent attack that took some time. The reason that it was a very violent attack is that there were 3 ways that he was killed. It wasn't just one shot, it was more than that. And what the medical examiner was able to find was, his name's Kevin Horn, was that there was a stab to the heart area that was not immediately or rapidly fatal. And what that means is he's stabbed and he still lives. He still can walk. He can still stand. He can still grab. He can still speak. That's not immediately fatal. And it's not rapidly fatal. The other thing that the medical examiner found, but it would kill him, this stab to the heart. The other thing that the medical examiner found was that his throat was slit from ear to ear. And that one was rapidly fatal, which means it would have killed him very quickly because of the blood loss. Not only would it have killed him very quickly, but he would not have gained or had consciousness for a very long period of time. He would have almost immediately have lapsed into unconsciousness. So the one to the throat. Well, and the one to the head, well, again, since that involved the brain, and although the body was decomposed, according to the medical examiner, that one was also rapidly fatal. And additionally, he would lose consciousness immediately. Based on that, and based on the fact that Mr. Alexander in his hands had what the medical examiner is going to term as defensive wounds. In other words, Mr. Alexander did not die calmly. He fought. Whoever this person was that had killed him, he had fought, which meant that he was conscious at the time. So what that meant is that with regard to the injuries that were inflicted, According to the medical examiner, the first injury was the one to the heart.
Yep.
And when that was inflicted, Mr. Alexander at some point began to fight. And what he was able to do was grab the knife, but he grabbed the blade of the knife so that he has cuts in his hand as he's fighting, presumably for his life. They're called defensive wounds. And given that there was blood over the sink that we have over here, and that the sink is waist level, and that blood is coming down from a source, Mr. Alexander was able to get up from where he was standing at this point, go over to the sink, stand there, and bleed. But those aren't the only wounds that he had. He had a grouping of wounds back here, behind his neck, on his shoulders. He had some on his head. He had some on his ears. He had some here, too. And by here, I mean his front torso area. So
of what, though? Cuts?
Yeah, stabbings.
To the heart area. And he was walking around. He was grabbing the knife. He was trying to defend himself, and that's why they call them defensive wounds. Given the blood spatter pattern, he ended up over here where the 45 was. And when he ended up there, that's when his throat was slit. And he was still alive, and we know that because of the amount of blood that was there. So whoever had done it basically followed him around, gone to where that 45 is, went to finish him off and cut his throat. But they weren't through with him. What they did is, this individual then, killer, dragged him this way, towards the area of the sink. And in that area of the sink, where that number 1 is...
Oh, yeah, she's looking real guilty right now.
Yeah.
And according to the medical examiner, by that time, he was probably most likely dead. Finished the job as if it needed to be finished. Because the first wound, even though it wasn't rapidly fatal,
Like overkill.
Fatal.
To go get a gun and shoot him, too.
Was totally fatal. The third one,
Yeah.
took
Well,
a shot.
at the bit of rage, I mean, look how many times she's stabbed him and tried
And
killing him, and he's
body
not
was
going.
At that point, more likely than not, dead. So Mr. Alexander, that probably didn't feel that one. But one of the things that we do know, and you'll see, is that there's a number 1 here. One of the things that was there was a 25 caliber casing, which means that the gun that was used was a 25 caliber. Even though police were not able to recover the gun, they know that it was a 25 caliber handgun. So that's what they have in this particular area. But you can have all of that. You now know that it was Mr. Alexander. You now know how he died. But you really don't know the time. You haven't narrowed that down. And quite frankly, you don't know the identity, one of the most important things, of the person who may have done this. And so police were kind of left there to guess. And you can lift all of the fingerprints you want in the world, but if you don't have anybody to compare that to, you're not going to know who the person was. And you can get all of the blood and DNA samples that you want, saliva, any biological substance that you want, but if you don't have it to compare to a known sample, that really doesn't get you any nearer to solving this crime to find out who the person was that had actually killed this individual. Well, the police then went downstairs and they found this camera. And as I told you, this camera was destroyed. But one of the things that they were able to do is they were able to take out a very small item. It's a SIM card, which is really the brain of the camera. And this camera had been recently purchased by Mr. Alexander. He had bought it between April of 2008 and his killing, because according to the defendant, she actually advised him via the phone while he was making this purchase of this camera so that he would get a really good camera. Well, this really good camera was in the washer.
All she had to do was take the SIM card out and smash it.
Pictures anymore.
Yep.
So the police
Stupid.
really seem to have nothing.
Throw it out the window on your way home.
And the SIM card has gotten wet. It has gone through the cycle. And so what ends up happening, you can just put that there. What ends up happening is that they get this SIM card. And with this SIM card, they are able to find, and you're going to hear the term encase. They're able to put it through this process so that even though not only has it been damaged, but in this camera somebody has gone through and erased everything. So that not only is the camera damaged physically, but the person who had it last, whoever that may be, has erased everything. But the police are able to recover, using this EnCase program, 3 sets of photographs. And the first set of photographs is in the early afternoon. And it's a group of 6 photographs, and these photographs are dated June 4th, 2008, and they have times on them, and they have time to the second. And what they're able to see that on June 4th, at 1:42 and 53 seconds, Mr. Alexander was very much alive. Not only was he very much alive, he was involved in these photographs.
He was very much naked.
And yes, they were both sinning, because they were going out. They were
both sinners.
And yes, they are engaged in sexual relations in these photographs. And the first photograph is at 1:42:53 p.m. The police are able to go in there and get that photograph. And this shows a frontal view of a woman. Then there's another photograph at 1:44 p.m. and it shows this woman's back end. And they're nude. They're just taking photographs. At 1:44:50 p.m.
Just another day at the office.
photograph of the
Where's the
victim who
exhibit?
clearly is excited.
We can't see
There's
it.
also
They're not going to show
I'm
it.
just,
a
they're not gonna
Okay.
show it.
bottle of KY, which is a personal lubricant that's used during sex. And we know that it was the defendant who introduced Mr. Alexander to the use of this KY.
Oh, really?
Well, the other
Why?
thing is that we also, at 1:47:15, there's another
It's in text messages, I think.
view of the defendant.
Oh.
And then there are 2 other photographs that really can't tell the time, but certainly they are of the defendant. So there's a total of 4 photographs of the defendant and 2 of Mr. Alexander. And they're both of them are very much alive. And yes, these are salacious photographs in the sense that what they are doing is what happens behind closed doors. But there is no legal prohibition against her driving or coming over to his house and having sex. There's no prohibition about that. There's no prohibition against Mr. Alexander having sex either. But that's what they find. They find him with a woman having sex on June 4th of 2008. Very much alive, both of them sinning, if you will. Well, but that still doesn't get you any nearer to solving this crime, because at least you know that he was alive on June 4th. And as they look at those photographs, they're able to make a determination, are able to see that actually the person in that photograph is somebody that people know. And it's an individual by the name of Jodi Arias. But you know, photographs can be a little blurry, they can be a little deceptive. You kind of want to be sure that that's the person. And so what they do is, on this hallway, and you'll see it as number 77, they were able to find a palm print, left palm print. And that is a mixture, it's a DNA mixture, but it's a palm print. And they're able to compare it to the known photograph of Jodi Arias, and she's left-handed, and that's her palm print that's on there. So now they have a photograph of what they believe is her, plus they have this palm print, and they've developed a DNA profile from there that matches her DNA profile. Then also in the hallway here at number 6, down here toward the bottom.
Yeah, no question that she's there.
PM6,
Yeah.
they find a hair, and they conduct DNA analysis on that hair. And the profile that is developed pursuant to that DNA analysis matches the profile of the defendant. So the police are now sure that the person in those photographs is the defendant, and it's June 4th of 2008. Again, it's nice to know that, and they're getting close, and it appears, because of all the blood that's there, that she's
I mean, maybe
the person that
she
committed
tried
this form of
diluting
crime,
the blood
committed this
because
form
maybe
of
her
killing.
blood was mixed in.
So what they do
Yeah.
then is that
Or just trying to clean it up.
with the investigation of the photographs. And they find a second set of photographs in this camera. And this second set of photographs is 20 photographs. And they are all of Mr. Alexander. And presumably because she's the one that's in the photograph with him, and they're not auto photographs, in other words, he's not taking it on himself, it appears that she's the one that's taking these photographs of him in the shower. And they're on June 4th, 2008 at 5:22:24. They were engaged in these acts at 1:45, but now at 5:22:24, he's in the shower and he's posing for the person who's taking these photographs. And there's many poses of the water running down him, and most of them are from the waist up. So there's no genitalia that is being shown during these photographs. But the 20th photograph shows him sitting in this shower. And you do see the lower right quadrant of his posterior. And that photograph was taken at 5:30. So he was in the shower for approximately 8 minutes with these photographs being taken. Well, that again starts to narrow it down. And then there's finally a third set of photographs. And these are accidental photographs. These are inadvertent photographs. These are photographs that the killer did not want taken. And the first one of those is 44 seconds, taken 44 seconds after the photograph of Mr. Alexander's posterior in the shower. And that's taken at 5:31:14. I'm sorry, yes, that is taken at 5:31:14. So it's 44 seconds after the last photograph in the shower. And this is, if you will, a photograph of movement. And the reason that I say it's a photograph of movement is because it's taken, or it's consistent with being taken from the waist. The camera is straight up. In other words, it's not upside down, it's not to the side, it's straight up. But the photograph is a picture of the lights above the shower, and it's nothing more than movement. But that's when the attack is happening, and that's when Mr. Alexander is being attacked by this individual. The next inadvertent photograph is at 5:32:16, 1 minute and 2 seconds later. And that photograph is taken right here, near that 45. And it's another inadvertent photograph. And this photograph is consistent with the camera being taken off from the shoulder, the lanyard that's around it, and falling. But the camera is actually on the ground now and upside down. So this photograph is upside down. All the other photographs have been right side up, which is consistent with the camera falling here, striking the click, or striking the button, and taking a photograph. And you do see the killer in this one. You see, this individual's here. You see her foot. Not only do you see her foot, but you see Mr. Alexander's head. You see his arm. You see him bleeding profusely. You see the area of the sink down here. And you know what else you see? You see her manipulating him, trying to drag him or move him. And we know she moved him because he ends up in the shower. So we do know that he's here for sure.
That's like all of 2 minutes.
Yep.
She begins to tug, pull him towards the shower. And there's another photograph that's inadvertently taken 1 minute and 16 seconds later at 5:33:32. And this photograph, again, is upside down when it's found. So the camera had not been moved, apparently, from the previous photograph. And this one is consistent with somebody stepping on the camera and there being a photo that it's taken. And on this one, what you do see is the shoulder of Mr. Alexander. You see the trim, and it's a little bit further down this hallway. It's this person that's in court here today. Drags him down in this direction. So the police now know what happened. They know that on June 4th of 2008, starting around in the afternoon, sometime after 1 o'clock, the defendant is there with Mr. Alexander. Even though they've broken up, even though she's in Wairika, somehow she's there in his house in Mesa, Arizona. They know that they engage in what is clearly one of the normal things of our species, and that's sexual intercourse. They enjoyed themselves. Yes, from a religious perspective, both of them were sinning. But she's there, and she's there from Wairika. She took 1,000 miles to get to that sinning. Then we know that at 5:30-ish, later on, he's in the shower. They know that whatever's going on, his defenses are down, he's very comfortable. We also know then that as he sat there, she took the knife and began to stab him when he was in that defenseless sitting position, and began and stuck the knife in his chest.
She got tired of being used.
Yeah, he probably said, I'm going on vacation, taking this girl.
Probably mentioned the kink. Right. She knew about it. I bet he wouldn't dare ever say anything to her because he's just like, come here, give me sex, whatever. He probably didn't bring it up, didn't want to rattle her, but I bet she saw maybe that he's packing or that he had packed or whatever. Or Jodi knew everything that was going on because she was such a stalker. So she probably questioned him after they had sex. And then he was like, well, yeah, I am going. And why didn't you ask me? She was really upset that he didn't ask her. So I think it was, I'm going to go down there and I'm going to sweet talk him, get him in bed and all that. And then I'm going to confront him.
He was trying to have what's that slogan?
Cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking about getting the milk for free, but yeah.
Dirt bag. What a dirt bag, right? Like,
yes,
these men who do this, like, he's not without fault here. He's not. He should have never been killed, but he's not without fault. Okay.
Blood. But since he's not going to die immediately, he's going to die from the loss of blood, and he hasn't lost consciousness. He began to go around the bathroom and ends up at the sink, hunched over. We know that he receives a lot of stab wounds to the back, and they're grouped, and also to his head. We know that he was stationary at that point when he gets to that sink. So we don't know exactly where, but it could be. It's consistent with him then being stabbed at that point as he continues to bleed out. And this bleeding out process is not immediate. He can speak, he can talk, blood may be flowing from his mouth, but he can still make noises, he can still move until he starts to lose strength. We know that, we can say at least, that it's consistent with him then trying to get away when he got as far as here, the entry to the major part of the bedroom. And we know that because of the photographs that we have, and we also know because of the big blotch of blood that's there. And that's where the slitting ear to ear took place. He was still alive at that point. That's why there's so much blood. Because when you die, the medical examiner will tell you, you can do whatever you want to the body. But if you're already dead, there's not going to be this spurting of blood. There's not going to be this blood that's out there. So he was still alive then. We also know that that is a rapidly mortal wound. And in light of the fact that he was already bleeding, he was more likely than not dead at that point. And by the time she was dragging him down, pulling him down towards this area right here, he didn't need that shot to the head. But she had a gun somewhere. And she got that gun. We don't know the distance. And part of the reason we don't know the distance is because the body's decomposed. But do know that she put that bullet right in his temple. And that also would have been rapidly fatal. That injury would have also rendered him unconscious.
Honestly, multiple stab wounds is a sign of rage,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I just think that the gun wound was just like, he's not dying, motherfucker, you're dying now. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure it was like...
Well, I don't even think it necessarily meant that he wasn't dying. I think he could have been laying there and her anger he was dead already, and she just was like, let me do this, and let me do one more, and just anger at that point. But I don't
like,
think
you're
he
not
was.
dying. Why are you not dying? Because I mean, at least that's what the prosecutor's saying. It's like he tried that first. It was this, and then and then a bunch of stab wounds around his back and around his abdomen. Like she stabbed him quite. It sounds like quite a lot, and then the whole slitting of the throat, like
28 times.
Yeah, like that's a lot of work. That's a lot of energy.
But I guess my point is that there are murderers out there that have their rage killings, that they'll like stab and stab and stab and then know they're dead and still stab them knowing they're dead. That does happen.
Right.
It didn't necessarily mean that he was still moving. He could have been dead and she's just like, keep going, just desecrate you.
Yeah, but it sounds like he's implying that he got, in the chest in the shower. Then he walks over to the sink and she's like doing all over his back and everything.
Right.
Not quite. And then he goes out to walk to the bathroom or whatnot and slices his
throat.
Right. And then drags him back to the shower and then finally, shoots him.
And
so I'm saying,
he did own a gun. I think it's going to come out that it's his gun. And because the case ends up being empty, I believe it was in the closet, the walk-in closet. So that would have meant that she would have to either have that ready or while he was laying there bleeding out from the throat, that she went in, loaded the gun, came out while he's laying there. And it just was unnecessary. It was unnecessary.
It totally is unnecessary. But I think that because he's survived how many times that she's done it, and he's still breathing or slightly breathing. You know what I mean?
True. Just wanting to double check even after you sliced him from ear to ear. I guess. I mean, yeah.
I'm sure it was still bubbles or something when he was
right. Oh, true. Sometimes there's involuntary noises they make and they're really dead, but it's just the body making those noises. Right. Okay.
Right.
She took that camera at some point, knowing what was on there. And you know how difficult it is to deal with these cameras. She was able to go through the process and deleted all of the photographs. She took time to drag him, put him in the shower, clean him up, doing away with whatever evidence may be on there, clean the area there, it's still very bloody. Took a towel to clean up, walked downstairs. Remember, he's got this dog Napoleon there. Walked downstairs, went to the washing machine, stuck everything in the washing machine, and had the wherewithal to start it. Put the camera in there after she deleted all of those photographs. Police knew that that's who she was. But they had something else that they needed to deal with. Because as I told you, this happened on June 4th, which was a Wednesday. The body wasn't discovered until Monday, the 9th of June. On the 10th of June, which is when, since everything happened at night, the investigation really took off on the 10th. Detective Steve Flores of the Mesa Police Department received a telephone call from somebody wanting to help. This person here called him up.
So stupid.
Help him out. And started to talk about how their relationship with Travis Alexander, how she was in Wairika, California at this time this happened, could not have had anything to do with this at all. She was asked, well, does Mr. Alexander have any guns? Oh, no. Mr. Alexander has no guns whatsoever. All he could do for him to defend himself, all he had was his fist. How about knives? Did he have any knives? Oh, no knives. Oh, not Mr. Alexander. He didn't have any of that. Not Travis. So she's telling them he didn't have a gun there. So that the killers, whoever they were, according to her, brought them with them. The other thing that she says is that, well, you may want to start looking. She gives him a lead. You may want to start looking at one of his roommates, a guy by the last name of Brown, Thomas Brown. That's who you really need to look at because, if you're really looking for people, that's the person who you may want to look at because I wasn't there. According to
boy.
Her, the last time she was there was in April of 2008. So how could it be her since this happened on June 4th, 2008? So it really couldn't have been her.
And already the camera proves that wrong.
That time, of course, the police know
Right,
if
but I
she
can see why she thinks
they
that the
already know there
camera
were fingerprints there.
wasn't
So
an
they
issue
know
because
that
she
perhaps
manually
it's true.
deleted it
They
all.
know it is
Yeah, she doesn't know that they have that.
proposition.
Yeah, she doesn't know
And
that they have
so- but
sophisticated
this detective
programs
keeps
to
talking to
still
her.
retrieve it.
And she says,
But listen,
it really
it can't be retrieved if you put bleach on it.
didn't have anything to do with it. It describes
Get
this
it?
relationship
Or her,
she
just
had
smash it.
with Mr. Alexander. The police need to do something with that because she has made it a point of saying she wasn't there. I couldn't have possibly been there. And so they start looking further at a possibility of where she was and that sort of thing. And one of the things that they're able to discover is that a week before this killing on June 4th of 2008, on May 28, 2008, there was a burglary report, seemingly unrelated to this case. There was a burglary report up in Wairika, California, where she was, May 28, 2008. And the burglary, the police responded sometime around 3:30 in the afternoon of May 28th, which was about a week before Mr. Alexander was killed. And they responded to a house on Pine Street, the house where the defendant was living back on May 28th of 2008. And the police did talk to the defendant about it, and there were items that were taken during this burglary. But according to the officer that responded, Kevin Friedman of the Wairika Police Department, well, there's something not right about this burglary. I mean, maybe the entry, there was a little bit of a problem. It was just like they were very careful how they entered. They opened the drawers, but, there were items that clearly were of value that they didn't take. And, well, it just didn't seem quite right. When he went there were two people there, the grandparents, but the defendant wasn't there. She was called and showed up and indicated that she had been the last person there and had been there as late as approximately 1 p.m. And the burglary was reported sometime around 3:30. So it happened between 1 and 3:30 p.m. And the defendant reported, oh, yes, there was some items that were taken of mine. There was a $20 bill and a $10 bill, so there was $30 that were taken of mine. And luckily for me, before I left, I was able to hide my laptop underneath some dirty clothing. So just in case somebody came in and, wanted to steal stuff, they didn't take my laptop. And thank God I did that because they didn't take my laptop. Well, those were some of the things that were taken and some of the things that weren't taken. But one of the things that was taken was a .25 caliber handgun belonging to the grandfather. And this is just a week before the killing.
Forgot about that.
And it matched in the sense that
Her
it's the same
grandfather's
caliber,
gun.
the .25 caliber casing that is labeled number 1 and is found by the sink. Well, the police looked at that and knew that there was a time. It was very close in time. The other thing that police were able to find was that on that same day, May 28th of 2008, at 9:25 p.m., the defendant sent an email. And she sent an email to Travis Alexander. And she mentions that he's going to Cancun. That's the first mention there is in any of their correspondence, whether it be text messaging, whether it be emails or instant messaging, of Cancun. And she indicates that she knows that he's going to Cancun. It is clear now that he's going to Cancun, and she ain't going with him.
That's her motive.
So that's something that they have. The other thing that they start looking around and they're able to find is that the defendant, June 2nd, which is 2 days before the killing, actually went from Wairika, California to Redding, California, which is maybe 1 to 2 hours away, south. And she went south for the purpose of renting a car. They have car rental agencies in Wairika, but she actually went to a different town that's approximately 90 miles away.
Like, why?
And she went to a budget rent-a-car.
Because she's going to commit a murder.
Yeah, but you can only hide that if you don't use your real name and if you use cash. And any car rental won't let you pay in cash or not give an ID.
Because it helps, because she lives in Wairika. So it just helps that the rental car was not rented in the same town as Jodi Arias for somebody who's about to get murdered.
All I had to do was put up her name, Jodi Arias. And did Jodi Arias rent a car? I mean, like, you could just look at any. I mean, they did find her to renting a car 2 hours away. What I'm saying is the only way they really hide that is to have a fake ID and pay cash, but nobody's going to allow you to pay cash.
That's true, but she's stupid. She's stupid, but her attempt here, you can see, is that she's thinking in her mind, well, I'm not going to rent it from Wairika. I'll rent it to whatever, 90 miles away, and maybe they won't find it as quickly. Because if anybody's going to look at Jodi Arias, they might think to look at rental car places in Wairika. So 90 minutes away, she might think they're not going to find it. But you're right. It doesn't matter if she rents it in her name, no matter where she rents it. That was just a stupid move on her part, but I see why she did it. You know?
Well, if he has any video or surveillance of his house, they can just go back and say, "Oh, I see. There's a gray Honda. Here's the license plate," and they run the license plate. Oh, it's a rental from Hertz.
Yeah.
Contact Hertz. Is there any rental of Hertz on this date or this name? You know what I mean?
Right. Okay.
It was not in her town, and it was in a place that's far away. And the person who rented the car to her, well, he was shown a photographic lineup.
Hold on.
And he said, and asked whether or not he saw the person that he rented the car to. He said, "Oh yeah, there she is, right there, the defendant."
Dumb.
He said, "But the photograph that you're showing me, she's got black hair. When she came to rent the car from me, she was a blonde. So
she used to be blonde.
You know, it's the same girl, I'm sure of that. But her hair color changed. Her hair color changed from June 2nd to June 4th in the afternoon when she was having sex with Mr. Alexander."
Okay, yeah, I do remember that now. Okay, so she was blonde for the entire time she was dating and involved with Travis. But then she hadn't seen him. Remember, he said, "Oh, I haven't seen him since April 2008, right? Well, just before this trip, this murder trip, that's when she dyed her hair. So when she got to the house, he probably was like, "Oh, you're a brunette." You know, and then he died 24 hours later. Right. Okay. Still used her name, though. So stupid.
And she rented the car and said she was going to return it on June 6th of 2008. And in fact, she returned it on June 7th of 2008. And there was over 2,000 miles in that car.
That's a lot.
One of the things that police were able to do is that they were able to find receipts. And they were able to show that the defendant, in fact, and she readily admits this now, that she did take a trip. She took a trip, but she was going to go to Utah, according to her. She was going to go to Utah because she has a love interest there, or somebody that could potentially be a love interest, by the name of Ryan Burns. And she was going to visit him, not only visit him, but she was also going there to maybe do some marketing with PPL on this Thursday afternoon, which would have been the 5th of June. And so they're able to see that she goes to Southern California, she stops at places like Starbucks there in the evening, sometime around 9 o'clock in the evening, and giving her plenty of time to be there the next day. So they're able to see that not only does she have the opportunity, she actually is placed near the area of California, which would have been a short is a relative term, drive to Mesa. So when she said to the police back on June 10th of 2008 that she hadn't been there, well, the police knew now that that was not true because they could trace her movements. Well, the other thing that they were able to find that came out is that...
We're going to take the news at this time.
Okay, so I'm going to stop it there because we got to wrap it up. We only have 15, 20 minutes left of his, and then we'll watch the defense.
What does she say? The judge?
I think she's saying let's break for lunch, I think. So I figured it would be a good time to stop.
Okay.
But, we've got a couple minutes to talk about it. But, yeah, so it was really dumb for her to rent it in her name, for sure.
Yeah. And then use her name for Starbucks, like use her credit card, or obviously they know that she purchased something.
Yeah, but that's in California. See, if she her plan was, I'm going to go visit this guy, Ryan Burns, in Utah. So she only wanted receipts that did show she was in California traveling towards leaving California in the direction of Utah. So she would want those receipts to show that. And then any receipts that are in Utah. But then there's this void, this time when she goes to Arizona, where she does nothing. Like literally it's all cash, and you'll hear about the gas cans and all that. So he's probably about to get into that, and that's really interesting, and that's why I wanted to stop it there, because I'd rather start at this point next time.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, and I love, like, you haven't even seen what I'm talking about when I talk about Juan Martinez. You haven't even seen it yet. But he's really good even in this fashion, just telling the story. He's like so thorough, so understandable. I mean, he makes it enjoyable to listen to. And how many opening statements have you heard where it's like, oh, be done already, right?
Yeah. No, he's definitely telling a story. He definitely has a nice ability to tell the story.
Yes.
I don't like that he's constantly moving though, but that's here nor there. That's just him. Yeah.
That's his style.
I'm sure that his cross is probably what you're talking about. That's amazing.
Oh my! Well, sometimes there's even one time that there's going to be a witness, and it's not even a main witness, but there's a witness that I remember in this trial that she gets up and she's like, I don't know. I think she's like a psychologist that like really believes in like, you know, post-traumatic stress syndrome and like labels and like women in distress and all this other stuff. And she's really all out for like protecting Jodi. And he gets up there and he literally, it's like uncomfortable the way he treats her. Like it's almost unnecessary at times. And that one I was like, wow, even like as much as I like him, I was like, okay, this poor lady, like, you know, she's just a witness doing her job, and he like rips her apart. Like,
we'll have to watch that one.
We're definitely going to watch that one. You were definitely going to watch that one because it's just entertainment. It really is. So, okay. So that is our show for tonight. Walking through the Travis Alexander murder, Jodi Arias, and, you know, we'll go slow. And yes, I'm going to repeat again because there's people out there that are like, I already know this case. Yeah, we're walking through it again. So, you know, there's that. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And I don't know if you can get it to go. We can try.
It hasn't worked in so long.
I know. Why isn't it working anymore? People, does anybody know?
I must have turned it off or something. I'm not even the good old thumbs up is working.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't get it. It's weird. Totally weird. Bugging out. Thanks for joining us, Misha. Sweetheart. I love Misha. Yeah. I haven't seen her in a while, but okay. All right. So thank you, everybody. And we'll see you on Friday. Bye.
Yes. Bye.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the hosts and guests. All individuals mentioned are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law.